Okay, so social media funnel strategy. I believe I'm doing this slightly different from other people. I'm not saying it's right. I'm testing things, I'm experimenting with things. There's every chance I could change course tomorrow if I change my mind tomorrow. But this is what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to explain to you in this video why I do it and why I think you should maybe follow a similar path or at least test it, experiment with it. Okay. So, social media. I only use LinkedIn. There are reasons why I'm not yet playing around with other social media channels. I will likely diversify into other social media channels in the future. I want to, I have every intention of doing it, but I'm just trying to double down and focus my efforts on one channel. LinkedIn makes sense. I've been fairly active on it for a couple of years now, and I've built up a decent follower count. So, mainly what I'm going to talk about applies to LinkedIn, but it does apply to most others. I would say YouTube is different. I'm going to explain why in a moment. But for most other social media channels, this strategy is applicable. And the reason I'm doing things the way I am now is largely because of an interview that I watched on YouTube, funnily enough. And it was the psychologist Jordan Peterson having a famous debate, infamous, depending on how you want to look at it. He had this long recording on YouTube. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half long. And it's the psychologist Jordan Peterson discussing kind of issues of masculinity and so on with a feminist. And I mean, this doesn't really matter. I'm just explaining to you where I first heard the concept. And during the interview, Jordan Peterson says he mentions Twitter and how he finds Twitter quite triggering, and he's trying to cut down on his Twitter use. So he's trying to use Twitter differently because he finds that it triggers him. And I found it interesting because Jordan Peterson is such an intelligent guy. And he says something in the video where he basically, I can't remember exactly what he says word for word, but something along the lines of human beings, like our minds, it's like we haven't figured out how to use social media yet. Like this kind of communication en masse, it's totally unique. Like the human mind is not, we're not developed enough yet to kind of deal with social media. We've kind of arrived at it too soon. And the reason I'm telling you this, the reason I'm mentioning this to you, is because when you create like a lead generation funnel or a sales funnel, or you're using different tools and different platforms, and you have to have a strategy for each one. Social media is a bit of a unique beast because no one really knows why someone is on social media. Like, why do we use social media? And there's a variety of reasons, but one of the things that I found as a copywriter is that people aren't really on social media to learn, except on YouTube. That's where I think YouTube is different. People do go on YouTube and they're willing to watch long form content. They'll watch a video that's an hour long, an hour and a half long, no problem. So people do go to YouTube to learn stuff. But if you're looking at like LinkedIn, Facebook maybe, I know they do the lives and so on, same with Instagram. But generally speaking, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and you're scrolling through the feed, you're not really there to learn something, okay? You're not really there to be educated. You can learn stuff and you can be educated if it's presented in quite a novel, interesting, exciting way, this concept of edutainment. But you're not really there to learn. So why are we dishing up content on social media channels as copywriters, where we're trying to educate potential prospects on copywriting, or even trying to educate other copywriters on copywriting? I've tested these kind of posts before. Traditionally, they haven't done well. Quite recently, I wrote what I felt was a very good post on how, my methodology for writing an email subject line that virtually guarantees email open rates around 25% and above. It was very practical. It was step by step. It wasn't complicated. There was only 2 steps. It was common sense, and it got quite a lukewarm reaction. Not many people engaged with it. The algorithm didn't really show it to many people because it wasn't getting much engagement, and it kind of bombed really. But the strategy I follow now, it kind of ties in to what I'm talking about here, which is no one really knows why people use social media. So we have to kind of have like an educated guess, like take a bit of a stab at it. People are kind of scrolling because they're not searching for anything in particular. This is not a search channel. They're just vaguely looking for something that grabs their attention. And usually this is something that's funny, something that's quite original, something that's shareable. Like it's, if they were to talk about it to a friend or a family member, look at this, or you'll never believe what this person's just said. So controversy works well. If you can say something controversial, that gets people talking. And relatable content. So if you, again, this typically ties in with funny, if you can produce kind of like funny, relatable content, but it doesn't have to be funny. But if you can make people like see themselves, if you can say, I'm struggling with this, are you struggling with it too? Or I don't understand this, does anyone else understand? Get people to relate to your content on social media, and the chances are it'll do quite well. And this is what I'm finding with the one channel that I've doubled down on, LinkedIn. I am at pains at the moment. I am deliberately trying to produce content that will that's a bit quirky or offbeat, or it'll make people laugh, or people will relate to it in some way, or it might be a controversial opinion. But use social media the way it's kind of intended, if anyone really knows how. Like I said, funny stuff, unique stuff, original stuff, relatable stuff. Don't spend less time trying to teach people, because there's a different channel, a different medium that's good for that kind of stuff. And this is like what I'm doing now, right? So you're watching like a blog video, a vlog, where I'm kind of teaching you something. Would you have watched this on social media? Maybe, maybe not. You tend to kind of come away from social media for this kind of stuff that you're watching now. This video is probably too long for starters to perform well on social media, apart from YouTube. But you come away from social media for this kind of stuff. So here's the funnel, right? On social media, produce relatable, quirky, funny, original, controversial content, stuff that's going to get people gossiping, stuff that's going to get people involved, rather than preachy, teachy content where you're just being an expert and saying, this is how you do this. And people don't really have much of a reason to interact with it, which means the content kind of falls off people's radar and you're not reaching a wide audience. So to kind of get that engagement and get a wide audience, you need content that's almost like interactive, and it gives people a reason to comment or react or get involved in some way. It can be quite irreverent, okay? I am trying, in every post pretty much, I've got a CTA in the comments section where I'm driving people to join my email list. It's the direct response copywriter in me. Kind of every interaction has a CTA. So in the comments section of a LinkedIn post, I'm driving people to my landing page where I can capture email addresses. My emails are essentially almost like a continuation of the social content. It's quite random and irreverent, and I'm just kind of talking about what I'm doing. It's almost like a journal, but it's more long form and it's more in depth than what I'm doing on LinkedIn. Again, I'm not trying to be too educational in my emails. Feel like people aren't opening my emails for that, or it's just a hunch at the minute. I have no real data to support that. And then obviously in the emails, I've got CTAs that are driving people to the blog, which is like my education hub. It's my content hub. Like if you want to be educated, if I can demonstrate my expertise, my authority, whether it's to other copywriters or to potential client leads, I'm going to do it in like a dedicated hub on my website. But I'm not going to drag too much of this into my social content or my email content, because I don't think that's why people consume it. Like, these aren't the right places. These aren't the appropriate places to be teaching. I don't have a podcast. I have no immediate plans to create a podcast. But if I did have a podcast, that's another ideal channel, probably the best for teaching people and educating people. But I think copywriters are probably falling down where they're on social media and they're not using it in the way that people use it. like people want to use it. Like people don't come on social media to be taught how to write a great headline. They're more likely to go and listen to a podcast on that, or watch a YouTube video on that, or read a blog post on that. They're not scrolling through whatever the social media channel of their choice is to discover that kind of stuff. So something worth bearing in mind. It's something I'm testing at the moment with some success. Strategy could definitely change, as I've said. But this is something I'm doing right now, and it's producing better results for me. I'm getting plenty of email signups. My posts on LinkedIn are definitely growing in terms of the amount of engagement they get and the audience that they're reaching, and my follower count is going up, and all that good stuff. The reason why we're on social media, to be honest. So yeah, like give it a try for yourself, and see if a similar strategy works for you.